this is a very, very common question asked by people who are very consistent in their inner work. Yeah, so I think a change of perspective is needed when this question is asked. So the question is, why do I keep attracting emotionally unavailable people even after doing so much inner work? So I want to answer this question in two ways. Okay, the first way is coming from my personal experiences, right? This would be for me, it's not about people who are emotionally unavailable, but rather people who are emotionally immature. Because of the work that I do, is very it gets very challenging because then I see the patterns of the emotional immaturity, and so it gets really challenging for me to be in a relationship with someone. I'm talking about extreme cases, okay? I mean, let's say a person who has everything right? Good job, good earning enough, stable, they're mentally fine, right? They're mature in that way, they're knowledgeable, but emotionally, they're still living in the shadows of their emotional stuff. They've not worked on their stuff. That gets challenging for me, because then I see how the patterns are, and that also means that it's also not right? If I'm dating someone who is that way, it's not right for me to coach the person or even point anything out, because the lines will be crossed. So that's something that I have found personally quite challenging. I would date people who are doing the same thing I do, because then there is a level of understanding that we are both working on ourselves and is work in progress. I think the challenge is when people don't see the problem and so do not think that they need to work on themselves. So that, in my personal experience, that is a big no-no, right? To be with someone who don't see the problem and who are not willing to work on themselves. Okay, so I'm going to answer this question another way. Why do I keep attracting emotionally unavailable people even after doing so much inner work? Emotional patterns can be very sticky, right? And even after doing, your inner work and all of that, we have some patterns in us that we may be tolerating. Maybe we maybe we grew up in some situations where we have to tolerate certain bad behavior to get affection. And so that may be a pattern that we, excuse me, that we may be unconsciously displaying. We may be unconsciously giving out, and that's why we then keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, because we make it easy for them to have access to us, right? So the question I always ask my clients is this: if you have been doing a lot of inner work, but you're still attracting emotionally unavailable people, ask yourself, what kind of behavior are you still tolerating? Are you still forgiving? Are you still making excuses for? Because in your mind, you may be going, oh, but I love this person loves me. So this is something, I should love the person unconditionally. So this behavior is okay because I come from unconditional love. No, you are repeating the same pattern as before. Right? So do not spiritual bypass, do not give it an excuse. Tell yourself, this is not the kind of person that I want to be with, where they display this kind of behavior. I've done it many, many times in my past relationships, right? You remind yourself, I've done this many, many times in my relationships in the past. I'm not going to repeat it again. So this is not for me, no matter how I feel, no matter how attracted I feel, right? So the attraction, unfortunately, usually it comes from a space where we want to uh This attraction is not a physical attraction, right? It's a nervous system attraction where we want to replay situations where we experienced in the past. And so we are repeating the patterns. So when you do the inner work, yes, you may be caring for yourself, but are you looking at the patterns that you are repeating? Are you still abandoning yourself and giving excuses for the other person, and make it acceptable for behavior that is really, really not healthy for you or for them? Okay, so ask yourself, what are you still tolerating? Okay, that would be the question. So the other way to look at this question is, when you are on a path of emotional mastery, it's not about who you attract, it's about who you choose, right? So this goes back to what my first answer about, what I said earlier on. Yes, you may be attracting people, but it doesn't mean that you need to go on a date with them. Just because they ask you out doesn't mean you need to go with them, right? You see the patterns, you go like, okay, this is not what I want. You choose to say no, and then you choose other people who have healthier patterns, so to speak, right? So not every person that comes along that asks you out is a potential. Some are just patterns, just repeated patterns from the past. Just say no. Okay, it's really as simple as that. So if you have asked this question yourself, right, maybe you might want to consider journaling this, using this particular reflection prompt that I'm going to give you. Ask yourself, what part of me still feels unworthy of consistent emotional presence? What part of me still feels unworthy of someone who's going to be emotionally available? Do I get irritated by this sort of behavior? Do I prefer someone who acts cool and cold? The people who act cool and cold are not emotionally available to you. Possibly are not the people you want. Okay? So, ask yourself, what kind of behavior irritates you? And maybe the person is really emotionally available, but then it irritates you, right? Then ask yourself why.